Hey everybody, it's Phil from Zaid Comics. I am the co-creator and writer of Magic Cop, a comic we're launching on Indiegogo in August, and I'm just one half of the two best looking brothers in all of comics. And today we're doing a comic review, new for me, but this is a 25-year-old comic that I've never read, that I picked up this weekend at the Chicago Comic-Con Revolution. It was an awesome show, small, cozy, down to earth. And the reason I went is to meet this comic's creator, Billy Tucci. The comic we are reviewing today is She, the Way of the Warrior #1. I got to talk to Billy a lot. He's a great guy. If you are ever at a con and he's there, go on over to his booth, say hi to him, get to talking about comics. He loves what he does, and he loves to drop the knowledge. I learned a ton from him. Saw him at a panel about crowdfunding comics, and we just talked a bunch this weekend. And like I said, I learned a lot. So this book came out in 94, and it started a craze of badass babe characters in comics. Uh, Around that time you had Lady Death, you got Danger Girl, you got Painkiller Jane, um, a bunch of creator-owned characters that were, slicing throats and kicking ass in the 90s. And she was a big one. Um, so this is, like I said, this is the 25th anniversary. It's got this beautiful cover by Billy, and on the back it's got the black and white version with a little splash of color there. And we'll get right into it right here. The cool thing that I want to show you guys, here's the original cover. But the cool thing I want to show you is there's a little prelude that tells you the backstory of what's going on in this universe. It's taken from real history between a battle between these two Japanese rival samurais, um, and the war that's been going on undercover of the city of New York for years now. So she is a badass vigilante who lives in New York, and this right here, this first page, is it just broke me. I went up to Billy and I'm like, I read, because I picked up the book Saturday and I came back Sunday. I'm like, I read this. That first page is mind blowing. The light, the shadows bending around her is just amazing. And he's like, yeah, he told me a story about it. He said that was pretty controversial back in the day. Like, the Comics Code Authority wanted him to have the comics code on his book. And back in the day, the Comic Code Authority were the guys that would come and stamp approval on your book that it's safe for everyone to read, basically. And he was saying, yeah, it's like $700 for the Comic Code Authority. And he's like, why would I do that? And he's like, well, the guy's like, oh, that's the thing that everyone does. And he's like, no, I'm good. Like, I don't need that. And this was controversial. People would come up to him and say, "Oh, that's the ninja chick that fights crime naked, right?" And he's like, "Yeah, that's right." It'd sell more books. I assume. I'm sure that this page sold a bunch of books for him, because you want in the first 1 to 4 pages to grab that reader's attention. So when they're flipping through in the drugstore, in the newsstand, at the comic shop, that it'll grab them and pull them in, and they'll need to buy it. And this page is all I need to see. It's just so beautiful, and like the little edges here of the gutters just cutting into the page. We'll see more of that, and we'll talk more about that. But that's really cool. And so the first few pages are very metaphorical. She's meditating. She has this kind of vision or dream here. And I love the narration in this book, because I do similar writing to this, where in my project that we're going to launch next year called The Lost Pages, the art is showing what's happening in time, and the narration is very metaphorical, and it gets the reader thinking about other things that's not actually happening on the page. Whether it's exploring a character's life, or just a lot of metaphors and kind of having that ominous narration to keep the reader thinking and build a character around that. So you may have an action scene and the narration about something else. I really like that because it kind of melds the prose of like a novel uh, with the action of a comic, trying to kind of bring comics up a level to what I think they could be. So this story does that very well. And here's a beautiful shot, iconic Japanese art here, recreated by Billy. And I really wanted to highlight this last panel here because we have it split between she drowning in the ocean, the water splashing on her face, and then the stoic stare side profile shot of her seemingly, sweating, kind of like in a cold sweat, thinking about all of these things happening. And you see that a lot in older comics, kind of, I would say Stephen Bissette would do that a lot in the Saga of Swamp Thing. He'd have a profile shot melting into another panel of, Swamp Thing. And we don't see that too much in modern comics. And it's something I really want to take out from the retro style of comics and try to put it into my Lost Pages book. And this is every action movie, every action comic book needs your hero to be suiting up. There's her armory she's going into, putting on this super sick costume, taking the quilting from old armor of Japan, putting on her makeup, going out like that geisha face is very very striking. And this just character design is brilliant because it's a simple costume, it has simple colors to it, but it has those striking features that melt into your mind where you're going to remember this character forever. Billy did a great job with the character design in this book. And here is the iconic splash page. Actually, this is a double page spread. I'll show you right now in the comic. You actually have to turn the book sideways to see this page. It's a centerfold. And the cool story that I heard actually on Comic Artist Pro Secret's YouTube channel, when he sat down, Ethan Van Sciver sat down with Billy to do a director's commentary or creator's commentary of She, the Way of the Warrior, he said that the original piece of art for this double page spread, he didn't like the face. So he actually took the face and cut it off of the cover image and pasted it over this double page spread because he liked that face better. So it's really interesting to hear these like guerrilla tactics of throwing a comic together from back in the day, because he was just starting out. He was doing the best he could, and if he didn't like something, he'd have to learn how to change it on the fly. Super cool stories like that. You guys should definitely watch that video. And she's going out for the night. We see her special weapon of choice, the naginata, which is like a staff with a big sword blade on the end of it, carries it on her back. And this is, when I was reading this, I got similar vibes from this and the first issue of Spawn, because I recently just read the first issue of Spawn, where Spawn comes up to some gang members hassling another person, and he disposes of them. So it's similar there. It's very 90s. Everyone in the 90s was taking down gang members. They loved it, and they were super bloody, and I was not ready for the blood that was in here because I didn't know much about the character at all until recently. And I hadn't read a lot of badass chick comics from the 90s, so this was refreshing. It was really cool compared to the stuff that I'm used to reading now. And right here I want to highlight something that Billy continues to do from this point on in the story, and he's pointed it out in interviews about his book also. something that I really want to try, because he bleeds the panels together. As you can see here on this third panel right here, he bleeds it into the fourth, breaking the gutters to indicate to the reader where the reader should go next to read. So this is really, even though it's mature, there's blood, but I mean, you know, young adult, it's fine for that. Even teens, it's fine. But if you're not used to reading comics, you could hand this comic to, I can hand it to my mom, and she could just follow those gutter breaks. And it's really interesting graphically. It's visually pleasing, I think, to break these gutters, just to indicate. It's not startling. It doesn't take you out of the book. It's just like, wow, that's really cool. I haven't seen that in any books before. And as you can see, he does it right here again. These two panels slashing through, almost like the sword of the Naginata is cutting through the gutter, slicing it up. And again, the very interesting use of these narration panels here, these narration boxes. I actually asked him about the narration boxes for the lettering, and he said that he did draw each one of these boxes, because for my Lost Pages book, it's focused around the stories that are contained in this ancient book that tell these myths of these, you know, real heroes that live amongst us that no one has heard of until the Lost Pages are read. And so what I did is I tried to make the narration boxes look like ripped pieces of paper that have been ripped out of the book, and I thought that would be really interesting. So I played around with it. I lettered it myself, and I really like how they came out. And I showed Billy the lettering boxes that I did, and he seemed to dig them. So seeing the boxes similar to that in this, where they're kind of torn up, kind of gave me a sense of validation, like, oh, this could work, and this looks really cool. I dig it in this book. I, you know, hope other people dig it in mine. And again, we see the panel. Do we see it on here? Not on this page. But the thing that I do want to point out is when she fights in the alley, the reader gets the sense of these ghostly shohai, I think that is what they were called, that she's a part of, these ancient warriors that are fighting on this never-ending battlefield between the, you know, in this invisible war. We see that super cool. I love the cuts here. And another thing, you know, I always talk about paneling. What does your panel do on each page? What does it convey to the reader? I actually have videos of how to convey horror and terror through panel layouts in comics. You guys can check that out on this channel. And yeah, go check that out. Highlighted Swamp Thing is a great horror comic. But as we see on this second, or I would say third panel here on this page, is the panel's ripped up and it's aged. Seemingly, it's from a different time, and we see these Japanese warriors on this battlefield. That's not happening right now. It's sort of a flashback, or, you know, a painting from another era. And Billy does this quite a lot from this point on. We see what's, you know, she breaks the light bulb in the alley, and then immediately we are thrust back in time as we see these big horses, these war horses fighting in this battle, and that's indicated by the ripped up panel, and then immediately going back into modern time with the regular panels. And I love that. I don't want to get too far into this issue. It is the first issue of a 12-issue arc of Way of the Warrior, and you guys pick this up. If you're digging this artwork, you're digging this character, and you like badass chicks in comic books, she is a bad one. So check it out. And if you guys liked this this video, give me a like and comments. Let me know if you've heard of she before, if this is your first time ever hearing of the character and Billy Tucci. He has a YouTube channel called Crowdfunding Comics. He's super supportive of the indie scene and new up-and-coming creators. He has them on to talk about their Indiegogo projects, their crowdfunding projects for their comics. So check that YouTube channel out. It's called Crowdfunding Comics. Give them a subscribe, watch their videos they stream, and it's a great way to get to know Billy and Niall, his co-host. Um, and yeah, if you guys aren't subscribed to me, I do reviews for comics. I also talk about my own comics. So we're coming out with Magic Cop, which is a 1980s fantasy crime book. Think of Miami Vice and Halloween Town, where there's monsters and magic, and that's the norm. And that's coming out in August. We're launching the Indiegogo. So head on over to zaidcomics.com to sign up for our mailing list and get a free 12-page pilot issue to read with our Magic Cop characters. And subscribe to our channel, give us a like, and hit that notification button so you know when we're putting up new videos. Thanks for watching, guys, and we will see you next time.